And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. We have Crusty Old Guy once again. Guys, we're back to our weekly, what happened this past week. This one had to get pushed back a little bit because, as you will have already heard, because it will have already come out, even though Crusty Old Guy and I just did it like an hour ago, we got to talk to Jeremy Roenick for an hour about him, and it was amazing.
This guy right here. This guy.
We got to talk to him, so that took priority over our weekly ramblings, clearly.
Yes, not priority over you guys, just our weekly ramblings.
Yes. Yeah, so that happened. It was amazing. I thanked him when we were doing the show, but we're just going to shout out to Jeremy Roenick. Thank you so much for talking with us. And let's get into this week's craziness. Got a couple of signings, a very long-awaited signing for Detroit. Your Lucas Raymond signed for 8 years, a total of $64.6 million, so that puts you a little bit over $8 million per year. Now Dead Wing fans are kind of just anxiously awaiting for Moritz Seider to be signed. I would expect that comes pretty quickly. Another big one, Sid the Kid, re-signed with Pittsburgh, of course, for $8.7 million, because if the man gets $1 more than that, I think he will leave the 412 for 2 years. Shout out to Sid. This was great on him. Definitely helps the Pittsburgh Penguins in their cap situation, and it has helped them for the past 19 years that he's been with them.
Yeah, most definitely. I can elaborate a little bit on the Lucas Raymond one first.
Yeah.
As the going trend, a young player shows some good promise, puts up some good numbers. Next thing you know, he's getting an 8-for-8 contract. How these all work out for everybody, I don't know.
It'll be interesting.
It's the trend right now is you've got to pony up right after your entry-level contract to any kind of good talent. You mentioned Snyder. That's a different animal. Everything that I'm hearing is Yzerman does not want to pay anybody more than Dylan Larkin. I think Snyder is planning to be paid more than Dylan Larkin if he's going to sign for max years. So they've only got enough money left cap-wise to come a little bit below what Larkin is making. So there's the possibility that this is not a super long contract. In order to fit him in, it might be a bridge deal, and a bridge deal meaning it gets him to UFA, so he would become a UFA quicker. I'm really curious to see how Detroit handles this, because if you bridge him and he continues to show that he's a number one defenseman, logging 25 minutes a game,
he's definitely going to want more money than Dylan Larkin.
Yes. And so you're going to throw him, you're going to have to go right back to the 8, and now it's probably going to be 10.5.
Yeah.
So that one's a little interesting to see how it works. Defensemen get a little bit more. Again, sometimes it doesn't work out. You can ask the Edmonton Oilers how good the Darnell Nurse contract is working out for them.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of contract negotiations and situations, the Jeremy Swayman drama continues. Now, myself, not being a big Boston fan, I am a big Jeremy Swayman fan. There was a couple of videos of, the Bruins GM being asked questions by media. There's been a lot of just different drama with this continuing as long as it has. I think they're just really not on the same page. Some people, are saying that, they're getting closer. They're getting closer. We were hearing this in June. Obviously, with him not being at the start of camp, they're not close. I do think eventually they will lock something down. I would be absolutely surprised if we get to, the beginning of preseason and Jeremy Swayman isn't locked down, but I think it's a money thing. I'm a firm believer that Jeremy Swayman should be paid however much money for however long of a period Jeremy Swayman wants. Um, because there's a lot of talent on the Boston Bruins. I will give them that. Jeremy Swayman is the reason that they were as competitive as they were in the postseason. Jeremy Swayman was the reason that they had a chance when they were playing against Florida. Jeremy Swayman is an elite goaltender who should get as much money as he wants, especially from the Boston Bruins. They traded away his friend and now they want to, haggle on the price of his contract. Just give him the money. He's your number one goaltender. He's proved it time and time again. This should be a done thing.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what is going on there. I'm going to pull up Boston really quick. And they're not going to be in terrible shape come next year. We've got some defensemen for some good money. There will also have to be another deal for Marchand too.
Right.
And Frederick, who won't be huge.
To my understanding, though, they're not in as much cap hell as other teams, even in that conference.
They are not. So I don't know what the situation is. I would assume if I'm Swayman, my starting point is Saros money, which is 7.7. That might be too much for Boston's blood. Obviously, they wanted to get this contract done because they both refused arbitration. They didn't want to go through an arbitrator again. They didn't want to air bad things about either side. But yeah, everything that I'm hearing is they're not close. So, again, your other choice is a bridge deal.
But do you really want to give Jeremy Swayman a bridge deal? Because I guarantee if he hits UFA status, there are plenty of teams that will be more than happy to pay the dollar amount that he's looking for or even beyond it to get a talented goaltender like him. Do you really want it to get to that point?
You can't. In today's NHL, you're basically telling them, we don't got that much confidence in you. We think it's our team structure. You're a good goaltender, but we don't consider you a great goaltender. These are all the signals that you are then sending. It's a difficult world in the cap world. You got to try not to hurt somebody's feeling, but you got to try to keep yourself money for other things. I don't know what Swayman is asking for.
Right.
That has not been leaked whatsoever. But again, I would assume it's close to $8 million. And out in the hockey world, there is mucho fear about giving a goaltender an 8-year contract for big bucks. Because the thing is with goaltenders, once their game goes, there's not a lot of them that come back. Granted, one of them just won a Stanley Cup.
Right.
But Bob struggled for 2 or 3 years, and the talk in Florida was, how do they move him? They can't move him. Now, can you imagine, had they moved him, there's probably no cup. Yeah. So, it's a wild situation. I've got to figure you pony up. I mean, that's just the way it is. So.
Well, and I also think, like you said, with Cider, or no, not with Cider, with Raven, this is kind of the new trend. Guys show a little bit of, they put up a decent amount of points. They get an 8 for 8. If Swayman gets an 8-year deal, would that potentially start a trend with goaltenders with getting, what's to stop, Shesterkin's, not Vasilevsky, because he's a little not up there in age, but I don't think he then would go back to Tampa asking for an 8-year deal. But other highly competitive goaltenders, what's to stop them from being like, why not me?
I'm gonna keep you on that point for a second.
Yeah.
Because you bring up a phenomenal point and probably a phenomenal comparison.
Yeah.
Who is Vasilevsky?
Mm-hmm.
So Vasilevsky went out. He had his entry level contract
Right.
for 3 years, and then he signed a team friendly 3-year contract, which would bring him to 1 year shy of UFA. And then, am I missing a year here? I'm missing years here. Hold on. No, I'm not. And then after that, he came out of his second contract
Right.
making 9.5. Do you think he's as good as him? I think he's shown it, maybe not as much.
But I don't think he's had the opportunity to show as much compared to Vasilevsky. I mean, Tampa was in the Cup Finals, consistently for multiple years. I don't think Swayman's. I think that's a hard comparison to do right now because we've seen more of Vasilevsky than we have Swayman.
Right. And the problem being, I think where Boston might have hurt themselves is he had his entry level contract and they signed him only for a 1-year deal after that. And that was last year. So they didn't pony up big money for like another 3 years. The comparable would have been like if had he signed next year, if you would have compared it to Vasilevsky's, he would have then come in at like 5.5
Right.
for the next 3. So they already lowballed him a little bit.
Right.
And I think he's looking for his term now.
Which I think he deserves.
And again, I would assume his term's got to be in between Saros and Vasilevsky. If you're considering him a primo goaltender, and I guarantee you he considers himself a primo goaltender. He showed it once in the playoffs.
Well, I also think, Boston trading Allmark, kind of, or at least the way that I take it, kind of shows Swayman that they do see him being their number one. And now Swayman's asking for number one money.
Well, you bring up another point that was discussed earlier is these are negotiations. Negotiations are about leverage. With Allmark in camp, you have more leverage against Swayman. Once you traded him, you traded away the rest of your leverage. And trust me, Swayman's camp knows that.
Right.
So they've kind of done this situation to themselves, and you have to get them signed. It's an interesting one. It's another cool one.
It's very interesting. I'm on the firm, Jeremy Swayman deserves to get his money. But moving on.
Okay.
There was a announcement, kind of joint between Dakota Joshua and the Vancouver Canucks. Earlier, a couple of months ago, Dakota Joshua was diagnosed with testicular cancer. He has since went undergo surgery, is recovering, is going to miss the beginning of training camp, but made the announcement sort of explaining that is why he is missing the beginning of training camp. We are glad that he is feeling healthier and wish him a very speedy recovery from testicular cancer.
Yes. My woman is calling. Can I take the call?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
All right.
The question is that. More in the hockey world news, Chicago Blackhawk legend Antti Ranta has decided to cease playing in the NHL and is going abroad to play hockey. Still playing hockey, but I would assume goes to Finland's professional league to continue. Kind of saw this coming in the sense of Carolina was not going to be able to continue with 3 goaltenders. And Ronta's had ins and outs in terms of injury. Same with Anderson, but I hope he has fun playing hockey abroad, and we will miss him in the NHL.
Yeah. Auntie, has gotten his opportunities. And never completely capitalized on it. Again, at the end of the day, he's a fringe goaltender who is a ball of fun.
Yeah, big
But
fan.
he's nobody that you're hanging your hat on to make a run with or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I told you, I was kind of hoping, it would be done for him, and I would have liked to seen him on the new Hawks network. I think he would have done an excellent job in between periods.
Yeah.
But obviously he wants to keep on playing, and I can't blame anybody for that.
Absolutely not. Got a couple of PTOs throughout the NHL as we're getting into training camp. We have Rod the Bod's son having a PTO with the Carolina Hurricanes. So that should be exciting. Good for him. Rocco Grimaldi on a PTO also for the Carolina Hurricanes. I would imagine that he then is signed and goes back to Chicago. He's been playing with the Chicago Wolves for the past couple of years, had a little stint in Rockford and then went back to Chicago. Did very well with the Wolves, and the Wolves fan base seems to really like him. So I hope he's able to continue that. Also, we've got former Blackhawk Tyler Johnson on a PTO with the Boston Bruins, and former Blackhawk Boris Kachuk on a PTO with the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, I can't see that Tyler Johnson makes it.
No, because that's the bad karma you get for shit talking the Blackhawks at your exit interview.
Yeah, and you had all fingers pointing at him being at least one of the problems from last year's team that completely, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, gave up. And just mailed it in and didn't even mail it in. I don't know what the step would behind mailing it in would be, but so it's going to be a tough go for him. He's not really a Boston Bruin player with his size, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. Did we go over the Steele's new coach or new assistant coach?
No, you want to talk about that?
I figured we give a shout out to him at some point in time when you wanted to. I forgot to mention that. I don't think we've mentioned that to the Chicago audience. So,
do you want to talk about it? Because I did not see this news.
You didn't see this news?
No.
Who am I talking about?
Okay. Can you tell the audience?
I've drawn a blank.
Oh my goodness!
He was on your Rockford Ice Hogs last year.
I'm not.
Oh my goodness!
You can't bring that up and then not know.
Rutu?
Krusty's a little off because of the Roenick interview. The mind.
Yes. I'm drawing a blank. I'm trying to corral my dog. I'm doing my best.
Well, go look it up because I'm going to explain. Because I'm going to talk about not a PTO, but a lack of PTO that I find mind-boggling. Guys, Phil Kessel is 8 points away from 1,000 points in the NHL. Can San Jose just give him a PTO? Can someone, please? Can we get the man on the ice for a couple more games? Unless he doesn't want to, but come on, that just feels so unsatisfying. You're 8 points away. Some teams should just give him a PTO, please. Because I'd like to see him hit 1,000. He'd like to see 1,000. Yeah, so that's a lack of PTO, but PTO nonetheless. We've got 2 captain announcements in the NHL. Victor Hedman is announced as your newest Tampa Bay Lightning captain, and the Chicago Blackhawks have a new captain in Nick Foligno. We kind of knew that Nick Foligno was going to be the next captain. He will be the bridge captain, from Jonathan Taves to your beacon of hope. I don't see anyone on the roster that's more deserving at this point for the captaincy. It was the honorary captain last year. I know I said a couple of months ago that I'd like to see just no captain until Connor is the captain, but I'm still very, very happy with this decision. I think he's deserving of it. It was really cute to watch the video of his kids bring out his jersey with the C on it. Big fan of it.
Me too. Oh, I'm trying to. I really can. Well, you need that counter for me.
Yeah, the derailment counter. It's fine. It's a special day.
Start naming off people on the Rockford team.
David Gust. No, David Gust retired.
And what's he doing?
I don't know. You can't bring this up and then not have the answer.
I believe David Gust is now a skating coach for the Chicago Steel.
Love it. But we need to double check that.
I'm on it, I think.
We're waiting.
Oh my God. You're killing me. Oh my God. Yeah, I got nothing.
All right, that's fine. I can go into my next bit, and then if you have it, because this will take a minute.
Okay, go into your next bit, because I'm struggling.
It's okay. It's okay. We interviewed Jeremy Roenick today, so it's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chicago Blackhawks do not have that much of a promotional calendar going into this season, nor do they really have any giveaways going into this season. So, because it's my show and I can do whatever I'd like, I have made my own Hockey Princess promotional calendar. And if you're looking to buy tickets this season, these are some games you might want to check out. This is purely based on ridiculousness, and my love for certain teams and my spite for other teams. So we will go in order. So we've got October 17th, first home game. More importantly, we've got Bedard versus Celebrini on the dot. Should be very entertaining to watch. We've got October 25th against Nashville, Friday night game against Nashville. Atmosphere is usually quite a fun one for Friday night games, and any game that we get to boo Nashville. And you guys can answer the question: is the Nashville Predators roster really worth the hype that it was given this offseason? We don't know. We'll find out October 25th. November 6th, we have the return of Showtime once again to the United Center. Patrick Kane, he's back. It'll be great. Hopefully I won't cry again. I probably will cry again. It happens. And then following that, November 19th versus Anaheim, your potential 2028 Western Conference final matchup. I definitely am starting to enjoy the games versus San Jose versus Anaheim, where you get to see all of these young players playing against each other, and it kind of gives you a little preview of what could potentially come with not only our team, but facing off teams that are also going through a rebuild and could potentially be competitive when the Blackhawks could potentially be competitive. So that's November 19th. 2 days after that, with continuing my streak, we have November 21st, the return of your Stanley Cup champion, Tomo Ruutu. Guys, I definitely will cry at that one. I made a shirt for that game. I'm a proud owner of a Tomo Ruutu self-designed shirt, and it's very cute, and I'll be wearing that for Florida's game. December 17th against the Washington Capitals. Where will OV be in the quest of breaking the next record? I don't know, but gosh, I really just hope he doesn't score another hat trick on Peter Mrazek. Like go into the Caps games. I like to see Dylan Strome occasionally, but gosh darn it, I'm so done losing 6-1 against them when they come to the United Center. And then wrapping up the end of the year, we have the Winter Classic because, guys, good or bad, Gary Bettman always gives us Winter Classics. Whether we do great in them, we won't. We don't have a history of doing well at those games. But gosh darn it, it's going to be fun and it's going to be cold. Anyway, January 3rd, we got the Montreal Canadiens, potentially the return of Kirby Dach once again, because rumors and rumblings say that he will be ready to go by the beginning of the season. But the real question is will he be healthy by January 3rd? We don't know.
Well, we really hope so. Crusty
really
Old Guy is a big fan of Kirby's. I've been a Kirby defender and got in the business. So I'm hoping for big things for him.
We love Kirby Dach here. And it's another one of Montreal's definitely another one of those teams where they've got a lot of younger guys. They've kind of been going through the shitter the past couple of years. And they could be competitive further down the line, similar to the Hawks, not Nashville, Anaheim, San Jose. So that's another one that's on the calendar that I tend to enjoy watching because I like to watch other teams going through the rebuild and play the what if. What if this is the 2030 Stanley Cup final matchup? January 11th, we've got my first game out of spite. Because we have the return of Corey Perry and Stan Bowman back to the United Center, friends. So if you're harboring resentment or anger or whatever bad feeling that you have deep within your chest about those two, this is the game to go to just let it all out. Because Lord knows I will. February 7th, another game against Nashville, and it's also the last game before the Four Nations break. What Crusty Old Guy and I will do in those 2 weeks where we don't have hockey, who knows? Probably watch a decent amount of Rockford and a decent amount of Indy. We got February 23rd, which is the first game back. Do a big old happy dance because hockey will be back at the United Center. We've got 2 more on the calendar. March 7th is the first time that the Utah Hockey Club is going to be in the United Center. We play them our first game of the season, but it's when we're in Utah. This will be the first time Utah comes here. The question with that is, will I still be bitter about them moving from Arizona to Utah? Probably not. And then April 12th is going to be our last home game. It'll be against Winnipeg. It'll be very sad. And then I will just fully dive into Rockford at that point.
So is there any truth to the rumor that the Blackhawks will be bringing back giving the jerseys off their shirts at the last home game?
Probably not, because we don't have fun around here.
That's the rumor that Crusty Old Guy is starting.
Oh, we're starting the rumor.
I think they're gonna, bring it back to where one lucky fan might be able to get a Connor Bedard jersey, game worn, taken off from the last game of the season. That would be a really nice thing to do, something a little bit for the fans. Oh, yeah, I see it happening.
Gosh, I really miss those games. That was fun. That was really fun. Did you find out your answer?
I have not gotten complete confirmation, so Crusty Old Guy looks like an idiot on this show as usual. That's my part, Crusty/idiot. I am pretty sure it's David Gust. I was doing homework on another show, and I was not too concerned about this one. I understand putting me in the corner for bringing up something that I didn't know the answer to. For your listeners who don't know, I also sometimes teach at night. One of the golden rules of teaching is you don't ask anybody a question in your class that you don't know the answer to, which I also did once, and you just look silly.
It happens. It happens.
It happens with me a lot, but Crusty Old Guy's pretty good with it.
We do have a thing to talk about. Thing that we've been talking about for the past 24 hours, though. Because I still kind of don't understand it. I mean, I do. I do a lot more than I did a day ago. But Crusty, how can Chicago Blackhawk fans watch games this year?
Well, within the last 24 hours, we were given more information and there was a signing. So, as of right now, the new CHSN,
Mm-hmm.
I believe if I'm saying that right, is the new sports network for the Chicago Blackhawks, Chicago Bulls, and your record setting, that's right, record setting Chicago White Sox. Um, Except they made all of these moves and had no contracts with any provider. So
Seems
what that
silly.
means is they just signed a contract with DirecTV. So if you have DirecTV, you will get these channels. If you have cable, like I do, as of right now, you will not get them. We've been told to get a digital tuner so you then can get the games. The problem with the digital tuner is I can't tape the game. So there's a lot of crusty old guy angst. We first started talking about this, and crusty old guy was very angry.
Yeah.
This is also just business. I'm under the impression that they'll get things worked out with Xfinity also before the start of the regular season.
But it also seems incredibly messy to leave this to the last second.
Yes,
Like,
but
you guys had a long time. It's not like we were in the postseason and you were preoccupied.
right, but it's the way of the world. We could say the same thing about Jeremy Swayman. It's negotiations, it's big money. Everybody wants to squeeze out the last amount that they can. So the best way to explain it is that way. You would figure your starting goaltender you would have taken care of, and they don't. So it's just along those lines. I have confidence that they're not going to tell everybody with cable that they need to go out and buy tuners, but we'll see. So my anger is gone a little less on it. Hopefully it all gets taken care of. See, this is the new Crusty.
This is what happens when you get to interview your favorite hockey player. You're in a better mood.
I'm more. This season's going to be good. Everything's going to be okay. I had a tendency to badmouth people a lot last year. That's because it was the worst hockey team I'd ever seen. But things are going to get better, and for us, did we talk about our captain?
Yes, I
We
did
did?
when you went away.
Oh, can I comment on that?
Of course.
Okay, it's a great signing.
Yes.
It works out perfectly. Foligno will have the C for the rest of his contract. Then he will give it to Connor. I had the fortune of when things were just starting to get back to normal, and I was unsure if Chicago would have any live games at the end of the COVID, the pandemic. I did go to a game in Columbus and had a very good conversation about Nick Foligno with some of their season ticket holders. And this was back when Nick was going to go away, or he had just gone away that year. And basically, what they told me is what everybody in the Chicago media, in the Chicago fan bases found out. As far as a man, he's one of the toppest notch people that you were able to find. As far as a leader, he is one of the top notch people. Their fan base was like, we're paying him to also be a major contributor.
Right.
And it wasn't meant to be for Nick Foligno. So it was time. They all considered it was time to go, but they said he needs to go, but nobody else said a bad word about the guy. So he'll be great for this transition. It's the kind of stand-up guy that you want, and the last thing you want to do is put any more pressure that's on the beacon of hope that already is there.
Yeah.
So sorry that I backtailed. Put that on the counter also.
Yeah. All right. Now we got some hockey to talk about because we have actual hockey to talk about. We talked about last week how we were approaching the Tom Kurver's Prospect Showcase. We had those couple of games. Training camp that starts tomorrow. Um, Crusty, what are your thoughts on the Prospect Showcase last weekend?
Um, Number one, kudos to the St. Louis Blues and their broadcasting of it, their inclusion of the Rockford play-by-play guy too. I thought everybody at this thing worked really well. Go ahead, Hockey Princess.
Which they are getting a new or they're Rockford's getting a new guy too.
Yes, he did play-by-play at Kurver's.
Yes.
They let him do a couple periods, a lot of good talk, a lot of good back and forth. I was shocked at the quality of the transmission and everything. I was very happy with the stream.
Yeah.
Now we'll get to the meat and potatoes, as we like to say in the show, huh?
Yeah.
Basically, there was a lot of question marks on AJ.
Mm-hmm.
What will this football player be?
And he showed you that he will be amazing.
He showed you, as again, we will preface all of this. This is just a prospect showcase. But
So
he left.
Be excited.
He left you very excited. He left me very excited. He has speed. We're looking for some grit. Somebody who's going to stick his glove everywhere. He stuck his glove everywhere. He was a physical presence. He was a fast presence. He scored a goal. Also, a couple mistakes. But he is a raw talent that, at least for me, and I know a lot of other people who watched both games, left with going, oh, geez. That could be one of the magical pieces that your cup teams beforehand picked up in the third and fourth round. So that was takeaway number one, is he seems like he could fill a ton of holes. I didn't realize that he was that fast on the ice. And again, he's a raw talent because he's on beginning year 2 of actually just concentrating on hockey.
Yeah.
He was I believe, 3 or 4 star college recruit for football. So that is number one. Number two, the other person that we're all looking at is Frank Nazar, or NASCAR, as we like to call him on this show.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR had a pedestrian first game. He definitely had Crusty old guy thinking, this is a prospect game. I need a little bit more. And the second game he delivered. He was everywhere. He was showing his speed. He was showing his shot. What this actually means, again, it is way too early to state. This is a coming out party because of the quality that he went up against. But when I went into this, one of the first things that I stated is he needs to be the best player on the ice. Yeah. And for game 2, he was the best player on the ice. So that is another good sign. With these prospects, as we talk about on this show, they're not going to come in and save the world like Connor Bedard. But we want to see improvement each year. We want to see gaps filled in their game. This was another step of saying, hey, yeah, he's for real. Does this mean he makes the team? I don't think so. I don't think there's a spot for him. But if there's a couple injuries, and as long as he's delivering in Rockford, he's one of your first call-ups.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And one, I do hope for his development that he does go to Rockford and not make the team for Chicago, because, we're seeing improvement. We're seeing great things. I don't think we should get overly excited. And I would hate to see his development get rushed because we're so excited of like, oh, Connor is somebody to play with. No, he is not. NASCAR is his own person. He's not on the timeline that Connor Bedard is. There is not a need for him to immediately jump. He's showing progress, yes, but I don't think enough progress for him to immediately make the jump. And that's not a bad thing. It's just he should, like we say every week, it's about development. It's not a demotion to go to Rockford.
Exactly, and I think we've talked about this before. And listen, we're not somebody who's got our noses up, Katie. We try to be very either way. At times we go too much the other way with Katie hate. Um, I think Katie learned a valuable lesson last year that he was underprepared for a team if there was some injuries. And he brought in all these veterans to make sure that doesn't happen again. His plan is to keep NASCAR down there. If situation happens and he comes up, he comes up. But this is the best way for him. Me and you have talked about this. I like the whole fact of that little group staying together and really mixing it up in Rockford. Your Nolan Allen, your EDM, your Comesso being in your back end, and now your Nazar, your Slaggert, your the other guy who delivered in the prospect camp was my guy. Paul Ludwinski showed what he could do. He showed his speed and his passing ability. He gets the game. Whether that translates or not, I don't know. But Paul's another guy like Sammy Savoy who
I'll talk about him in a minute.
on a team, they're going to be your third or fourth liners, but you've got to have those, and they have to be talented. Ludwinski had some good games too, as did Landon. And I haven't talked enough about Colton, but he looked the part again. You're just, it was either the first or second game. He's skating up ice. He crosses the defensive blue line and is skating through the neutral zone, completely upright, reaching back, trying to corral the puck. And he took a hit, and he has to learn to just softly dump the puck and protect himself. It was just a bad look of a spot where he can't leave himself that vulnerable. And we've talked about it. That's the biggest worry with Colton. You've got already, he's missed time multiple times for injuries. He's got to play a little smarter where, hey, don't worry about the play that much. Protect yourself. Learn to fight for another shift.
Right.
So I'm hoping I'm sure that's a lesson. I'm sure that's something they're talking to him about.
Yeah.
But so besides that, defensively, we know what we have in EDM and Nolan Allen.
We also didn't talk about this last week with Artie. The news of Artie being out for a little bit, had a right foot injury in the NHLPA showcase, which is just where a bunch of rookies from the different teams get together. Anders Sorensen, who is the head coach for Rockford, said that, he's going to be out for a little bit, but it's not a cause for concern. I really think they did not want to put stress and pressure on him for a prospect showcase. I don't think the injury is anything serious, but I think that they would rather just keep him off the ice for now and then potentially training camp or when they're in Rockford. Like, there's no rush for him to get on the ice too quickly.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing I heard. If he's in the regular season and this is a competitive team, he plays.
Yeah.
But for this kind of thing, it's senseless to put him in. So they said, there's just no need for it. Tread lightly.
Had a decent amount of defensemen too.
Yeah, I mean, the objective is to get him ready for opening day in Rockford. So
another one that really stood out to me, especially in the first game, one of Crusty's favorites. And one guy that I do hope that he has a decent shot to make the Rockford roster potentially. And that is your Nick Lardis. Because good God, I found him just highly entertaining. For the first game, the kid can put the puck in the net, and I would like to see him have a shot. for some sort of roster spot. He probably will end up going back to juniors, but he looked incredible in my opinion.
He did, but unfortunately, then he got a little dinged up and didn't play the second game. So,
But he is
no,
set to go to training camp, and he's not on the injured reserve.
right.
Yeah.
But again, like Artie, he got dinged up, and they figured what was the point to get back to game one. You saw in the first minute a beautiful cross ice pass by NASCAR right into the wheelhouse of Lardass, and Lardass put his butt behind it, and boom. And I automatically a little bit jumped off the couch going, that's what we're hoping from this kid. The kid's a sniper.
The kid puts the puck in the net.
He puts the puck in the net, and you have to have players like that. Especially, you can't have on your power play a one-shooter threat that we have now.
Right.
Now, if I got a two-shooter threat, now I'm cooking. Once you can't send three people to Connor, this all becomes better. And once you're able to dish off to somebody else, Lardass is still going to be 2 years away. But he's showing, yeah, I can do it. I can do it. Every situation, I can do it.
Do you think he could potentially, I know 2 years away, but do you think he could potentially be the next group, come April, if the junior team gets knocked out of the playoffs, he's brought up like Ledwinski and Savoie were. I even think he was brought to Rockford to watch a couple of the games at the end of the season.
I think that'll depend on where they're at the end of the season, how many people are traded.
Right.
I'm expecting a good amount of people to go again at the end of the year, and that's when you'll see maybe NASCAR come up, maybe not. This team right now, you bring up a phenomenal point, is at a weird dynamic because you're going to trade some veterans out, but you're also expecting the Ice Hogs to be close to the top in the AHL. So with that, do you want to bring your key pieces up here for a little bit? So I think if they decide, no, they don't want to, and they've talked to the players and say, again, like you've been preaching, development, it's not a demotion, and they keep them in Rockford, then yes, maybe he comes up for a game or two and make some NHL money. That's possible.
I think they find a balance. I think they're more is like we said, depending on how competitive Rockford is, and if they have the ability to jeopardize that or anything. I think, they bring up an Isaac Phillips over an Ethan DeMastro, depending on the situation. I think there's other forwards that are younger, maybe not a part of the rebuilding core that they could bring up for a little bit and then still keep their main guys who are going to be a huge reason why Rockford's so competitive. But also if they're the first in the division, then give the kids a little bit of time up here.
Yeah, they might give them a little bit. Or
it's a balancing act though with that.
Yeah, it is. I believe they're pushing all their chips in on. They're hyping the heck out of it. Anything but first or second becomes a disappointment. So I think there is a path to him at the end of the year. If you decide you're going to leave your core Rockford people down in Rockford.
Yeah.
There's a
Even
chance.
if he doesn't play, I would assume he at least gets brought in at the end, like the guys did in April, where they're, sent up in the box and said, okay, watch.
Yeah. And did you watch game 2 or?
I watched the highlights of game 2 because the Blackhawks did not keep the game up on the website, so there wasn't a way to watch it, but I watched the highlights. I watched Colton's fight. Big fan of that. Love him. We're big Colton fans here. We're a big fan of the Doc family on the show, if you haven't noticed. Big fan of that. Watch the interviews where, he says that he thinks he's ready for a spot. I think, like Crusty said, I think he potentially could be one of he's high up on the list in terms of if there's injuries in Chicago. That I definitely agree with. I don't know if he gets a spot for October 8th in Salt Lake City, but if we do go on an injury spree after playing like Vegas or whatever, I do think he's high on the list to come up.
Yeah. Two other takeaways from the series. Number one, the Gradeau goaltender had a very nice showing. Kind of was almost Fleury-esque at times. He was jumping and flipping and flopping from post to post.
Heck yes.
I'm not a believer in that gets it done in the NHL, but he got it done for this game. So that might be a nice little story. He had Derek King's son there and a couple of other unsigned players, big boys on defense. And I believe at this tournament, they wanted to show what they expect from Rockford and the Blackhawks, meaning anytime anybody got close to a goaltender, these big defensemen took exception. It was beautiful to watch. Derek's King's son, I don't know his talent level, but they sent a message. And I believe this is a message that Luke will begin bringing to the big club that, hey, the days where everybody gets a free pass are over.
Crusty's frozen. Yeah.
So that was my other.
Back.
Huh?
You're back.
I'm back. That was my other big takeaway. It seemed like that was talked about. That wasn't gonna be tolerated anymore. Yeah. Which, hey, I'm a fan of.
So. As someone who had to watch Alex Stalock get carted off the ice, I'm a big fan of defensemen protecting goaltenders.
Yeah, it's part of the job. You don't want Seth Jones being the guy to do it.
He shouldn't have to be the one to do it.
You're expecting Pickle to sit up a little bit, but the rest of these big boys, that's completely their job. And it's their job to show Vlasic this is also a part that you've got to do. Right. So that was good to see. Anything else? Yeah, it was great to watch hockey.
It was very great to watch hockey. Definitely, I know, again, I just got to watch the highlights, but from, everything that I read and saw, definitely liked Misiak in the second game. I definitely have seen improvements. He was a little in the first game, but what's going to happen? It's a prospect showcase. It's also the first time that you're, playing a game in a while. It's going to take a hot second because these are children. But I definitely liked from what I saw in the second game. Definitely saw improvements. Hope to see him. I'm excited to see how he improves this season.
Yeah, me too. And I guess my only other comment would be as far as we got some preseason games at home.
Yeah. Oh, I got one more thing to talk about Prospect Showcase because I didn't talk about my favorite guy.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. We'll turn it over to the Savoie show.
The Savoie show. Because, guys, I finally got what I want this Prospect Showcase. We got Gavin Hayes, you got Sam Savoie, and you got Paul Ledwinski on the same line. And it was super fun to watch. Like Crusty said, Ledwinski played great. He's going to play great. Savoie definitely wasn't at his full potential, but I think everyone really needs to bear in mind how serious the injury was that he had and got in, or that, when it happened this time last year. And yes, he's back on the ice. Yes, he's done rehab. Yes, everything. It's still going to take a little bit. He came back at the end of last year, played a couple of games with his junior team, but he hasn't been playing for basically a whole year. It's going to take a minute. I think people need to alter their expectations of his performance. Not to say that he's going to perform bad, because I'm a huge fan of his, but I think it's going to take him a little bit to adjust. That was a horrible injury that happened that takes a pretty long time to recover from. Even after you've done your physical therapy, done your rehab, it'll take a little bit once you get back on the ice and actually play a game, because there's definitely a difference between, just you can do drills all you want, but it's going to be different playing an actual game.
Exactly. And, his style is a little rough to play, and there's got to be some tenderness to it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's a big injury.
Yeah. All right. That was had to talk about my guy.
No, I just wanted to mention a little bit of preseason. I was sent a link to get my preseason tickets if I wanted them. And then the prices I was shown were like regular season prices. And I, like Crusty, old guy, I overreacted, sent off an email. And Jamie and that group got right back to me the following morning and say, we don't know what you did, but these aren't the prices. Let me help you. Preseason's a really good time to go if you've got like tiny tots.
Yeah.
You can get a lot closer for a lot cheaper price. And if they get bored, you can leave. It's not a regular season game. I'm a big fan of it.
Right.
So I just wanted to shout out to them that they did take care of me. And, you can sit in the 200 level for like $30 and watch a preseason game, and you'll get a good amount of players. You'll dress some of your starting core and a good amount of, our up and comers that you get to see live. So,
yeah. I'm going to explain once again how these next couple of weeks are going to go. So we had the prospect camp. Now training camp, well, it officially started today. They had their physicals, but they'll be on the ice tomorrow. Training camp then bleeds into preseason, which then will bleed into the regular season. So we don't have any breaks anymore, guys. We're officially back. But as you see on different social medias, they posted the whole training camp roster, and it's a giant roster. There's like 6 goaltenders, and it's basically everyone that is not currently playing in a professional league overseas, because you definitely have some prospects that just weren't going to come over for training camp, like anybody that's playing in the KHL or in Finland or Sweden's professional league that really doesn't see the point in coming over here just for training camp. If they're going to be sent back over, they're not going to be there, which is also a gentle reminder that it's not the end of the world that Oliver Moore isn't here, guys. He can't be. But the training camp roster is quite lengthy, and it's just going to slim down until we get to our opening day roster. But so we had prospect camp, now we have training camp, and we have preseason. Another exciting one on Saturday, October 5th, there will be a preseason game up in Milwaukee. I went to that one a couple of years ago. Super, super fun. It's a nice neutral site, and the stadium is beautiful. Very new, very renovated, probably one of my favorite stadiums to either see a concert or a sporting event in. But that'll be super fun. I'll not be there, but still a really fun and nice idea that the Blackhawks have done for the past couple of years. And then it will be regular season hockey.
Yes, and I won't be there either. Crusty old guy has a weird way with preseason games, and for your listeners, I'll just explain. Crusty old guy doesn't go to the United Center until it's opening day. I like to take it all in and smell the ice of the first regular season game. Crusty old guy's pretty weird.
I will go the minute they allow me back in the United Center. Crusty, you got anything else for this episode?
No, I can't believe we've talked an hour. I would assume next week we get to see what lineups might look like, and we can start to dissect that, so I can start to talk about this actual Blackhawk team.
Yeah,
which is what I like to talk about.
Just as a reminder, make sure to click that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. give us a review. Let us know how we're doing. If you guys have any questions, comments, you want to be on an episode like Jeremy Roenick, send us a message. We're on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can email us at thehockeyprincess@gmail.com. That is all for this week's double feature. And we will talk at you guys next week.